Hi, I'm Professor Sky, and I'm going to be dropping this video at 7 p.m. on Thursday, April 24th, which is the exact moment that I will be moderating a discussion between the two people who are the subject of this video, Rick Beato and Anthony Fantano. It's going to be at the University of Rochester. I'm very excited, and I don't know how it's going to go. I hope it's going to go well. I'm a little nervous. I'm a lot nervous. You know, I am a music YouTuber, and these are basically the two biggest music YouTubers in the world, but I think it's going to go pretty well. The thing is, I've posted about this a couple times, and a lot of people say, you know, where's this going to be live streamed? How can we see it? I don't know. You might not actually see it. I'm not in charge of this event, so I can't tell you with any certainty whether or not it'll be recorded. So what I thought I would do is sort of share some of my thoughts that I've been going into as I've been watching them both for years, but I've also been researching them over the past couple months. I thought I would share just some appreciation. It's going to be an appreciation, okay? It's going to be for both of them. It might be an intro to you for one or the other, right? Maybe you like Beato but think you don't like Fantano. Maybe you like Fantano, think you don't like Beato. Maybe you don't even know who I am, and you just clicked on me because you were at the event. Whatever it is, welcome. Let's talk about it. Let's have a love fest, an appreciation moment for these two figures in music criticism. Now, I need to say, I never watched them before I started doing YouTube. So when I started doing music YouTube, I did it mainly as like a political YouTube fan. I watched a lot of video game YouTubes, even though I didn't really play video games anymore. You know, just kind of a typical YouTuber guy. And then I started the music channel, and then as time went on, I started to understand that, okay, these are the guys, you know? There's always other guys, other girls, other NBs, right? There's always the person who is the big name in the space, and these are the two biggest names, with the most eyes, the most ears, the most brains paying attention to them. Between the two of them, they have over 2 million views. I'm sorry, over 2 billion views, okay? That's billion with a Sagan, okay? 2 billion views. That's a lot. That's a lot of care. So what are they? Who are they? You know, I'm a music cricket. I'm a real full-time professor, but I'm also a part-time music cricket. You know, I like thinking about music, and my heroes are, you know, Greil Marcus and Lester Bangs and Dave Marsh and Greg Tate. What's interesting is, even though that's sort of who I look up to in terms of music criticism, neither Beato nor Fantano are trying to fill that role, which I think is interesting and might be part of the reason why there's some snobbery sometimes against them. So I'm going to provide a rough thesis, a way to think about these two people that is guiding what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm even wearing what I'm going to be wearing tonight, so it's like you're there with us. That's just what they want, Sky. They want to see the moderator. What could I do? I'm just one guy. I believe Beato is probably flying up to Rochester right now, and Anthony Fantano is probably in a car on his way. So my rough thesis is that what they are is they are the teacher and the student. Rick Beato, the teacher, and Anthony Fantano, the student. That's my overarching thesis, and I'm going to talk about how we're lucky. We're just lucky. We're very lucky that the biggest names in these spaces happen to be so good, so thoughtful, so worthy of being big, famous YouTubers. All right? Now, I'm not necessarily saying they are the absolute best, okay? I don't know that. That's not for me to decide. But I will say that it is meaningful when the biggest voices in a space are not just good, but great. Take an example of hip-hop. You know, as much as I love Justin Hunt, and as much as he is like one of my true heroes, his viewership is not as high as that of someone like DJ Academics. And that's like a signal of, frankly, a very unfortunate byproduct of the fact that people tend to care about gossip more than they do about the art, okay? We are extremely lucky to have Justin Hunt. But imagine if the numbers were flipped. Imagine if the world were right and Justin Hunt had 3 million subscribers and Academics only had 400,000. That's how we are with Beato and Fantano, these two figures who managed to talk mostly about rock, a little bit about hip-hop, rock, jazz, pop. They cover a lot of music between the two of them, and they are, I would say, forces for good. Excellent communicators. I did the little Carl Sagan joke earlier, but it's important. You know, Carl Sagan wasn't necessarily the world's best scientist. Bill Nye isn't even really a scientist, in case you didn't know. But they are communicators of science. Beato and Fantano are absolutely brilliant communicators of music. And so Let's talk about that, about these two people who may be divided by a lot of things, but are unified by a shared love of craft, a genuine passion, a personal yet aloof persona, and for lack of a better term, they're both just music nerds that create and harbor a passion in other people. They're also both quite principled and quite centered, which I think is important. So while I've been getting ready for this event, I've been posting to my Instagram, I've been posting to my YouTube page, all that stuff, because I'm super excited, right? I mean, how cool is it? I get to talk to two guys who I've watched for, I don't know, hundreds of hours, you know? And what blew me away was the negativity. Like, I don't know. It was wild. So basically what happened was it seemed that the fan base of one would criticize the other, right? And this is part of what's important. They are criticized because they are the standard against which everything is compared. Often, because I cover a lot of the same music that Fantano covers, or sometimes, I will receive comments like, bro, you're so much better than Fantano. That guy's a clown. Oh my God, I can't believe this. I mean, you can save those comments. I like comments, but you can save those comments. Because first of all, we're not trying to do the same thing. Second of all, I would never insult somebody who does his job so well and who does what he does so well. You're never going to catch me agreeing to anyone dissing him. But when we get back to this negativity in between the two groups, I think it's really a generational divide. And that's what I saw. I think Fantano fans don't know Beato, and Beato fans don't know Fantano, okay? You could also call it the Steely Dan, Jordy Greep divide, okay? I'm positive that Jordy Greep could unify everybody in this whole world. A Keith Jarrett, edgelord, modern young musician. Like seriously, if we could just sit down in a room, we'd be all unified. But there's this question I'm not going to ask, okay? I wrote like 100 questions, and there's a question I'm not going to ask, but that really interests me, and I want to use that to further go into this question. I was going to ask them, tell me about the caricature of you. Tell me about the ways that you have been cartoonized by the media or by your fans or by the internet. And how does that differ from the reality? Because that's the thing. When people reach a certain level of fame or visibility, they become a caricature. So let's start with Beato, okay? The cartoon of Beato is that he just hates new music and he's just a boomer, okay? First of all, point of clarification, he's technically a Generation Xer, okay? He's an old Xer, not a young boomer. And as a old Xer, I can tell you I relate very much to him in that sort of generational way, but I get the point, you know? But it's not true. The thing is, there is on YouTube and everywhere on the internet a perverse incentive structure. Whatever gets eyes, whatever gets clicks is whatever gets you your paycheck. That's what puts your kids through college, okay? That's how you do it. So the perverse incentive structure emphasizes two things: niche and negativity. You have to play to your niche, and Beato's niche is mostly, I believe, music fans over the age of, say, 35, who are not too fond of new music. And you kind of have to play the game. And that feeds into this idea of negativity selling, niche and negativity. The negativity, it's just way easier. It's just way easier, okay? If I came out on my channel and said, I'm going to destroy Beato and Fantano, there'd be like an extra 100 people at the talk because they'd want to see everybody crashing out, okay? That's what they'd want to see. People don't want to click on positivity. So that's the perverse incentive structure. But what that does is that alienates people who are not inclined to be in that space. So we can either have a financially solvent, creative, inspirational, interesting figure who sometimes will emphasize negative aspects for money. Or we can have somebody who can't be independent, who can't make videos at that level, who can't have that success, might have to pick up a part-time job in order to do that. All right? That's the tricky thing that we're in. So that's why many people in Fantano's audience have only ever seen Rick Beato's, the top 10 Spotify reviews, where he's often quite negative about the lack of simplicity, about the excess of simplicity and the predictability of modern pop. Okay? It's easy to take down, okay? He also did a video about why modern music stinks, and Fantano went back and forth with him, and they had a sort of lively debate online, a friendly but lively debate between themselves. And you know, there's things that I agree with, things that I don't. There's like certain principles that I really appreciate, that he's really on top of the fact that we have pocketed all rhythms, that all drum beats can now be syncretized to a specific note is really killing music, is really killing the feel of music. I felt that all the time, and he puts word to it. So is that him just yelling at clouds, or is that him defending music in a way that all of us should? So that's the cartoon. But the reality is, this is a guy who exhibits a life in music, just bleeds music. Now, he's from a couple towns over. I live in the Rochester area, which is very cool. I always think that's really neat. I have this dream of sometime going with him to a store called Andy's Fab Gear. The guy who wrote the book about all the Beatles guitars is from the town. The store is in the town where Beato grew up. I have the dream of like making a video there and, I don't know, buying a Hofner bass. I don't think I can afford it. But anyways, so that's who he was. But what's great is that his stories infiltrate his music. He's old. Okay, great. He's not even that old, but you know what I'm saying. For most YouTube viewers, which tend to skew younger, he's older. And so he was a gigging musician in the 80s and the 90s. He was a college professor of jazz. After failing auditions to get into a college, he then went back within 6 years and was a professor. Do you understand this story, this life that he has lived? He's worked as a producer and a gigging artist, and he found a way to be a communicator. He found a way to be a teacher. He was always a teacher. He learned how to teach jazz guitar at Ithaca College, and then he takes that ability and he uses it to teach people about music. That's what he does. He teaches. He doesn't just sit there and hate. He teaches. So if you ever see a Beato video and you think that just seems too negative, don't watch it. I'm going to give you a couple of viewing suggestions. Probably my favorite video of his is maybe his 4th or 5th biggest video, called The Most Complex Pop Song of All Time by Sergio Mendes, Never Gonna Give You Up, right? Not, he tells this whole story, never gonna give you up, I wanna hold you in my arms forever. That's the song, in case you don't know. You want me to keep singing? No? Okay. He tells this whole story about playing songs for children in the Rochester park system in 1983, right? Just a totally real story, you know, a life in music, and how he thought he could learn this song in one day because it was a pop song. And he tries to describe all the changing modulations and the pitch changes and the chord structure and how complicated the panel is. It's a beautiful story. Watch that video if you've never seen it. I'll include a link in the description. If I remember, I'll put a link up there. I'm probably not going to remember, but I might remember. You never know with me. And it's just a beautiful story. And if you don't, and if you haven't seen his work on Keith Jarrett, when I'm talking about passion, he doesn't just teach music, he teaches passion in music. He teaches really caring. I didn't know much about Keith Jarrett until Jordy Greep name-called him, and then I looked him up. And where's the best place to find good information on YouTube about Keith Jarrett? It all comes from Rick Beato. A great interview, multiple videos where he explains what makes somebody so great. What about Fantano? Okay? He's just the cartoon of Fantano's. He's just a young guy praising edgy internet music for internet kids, okay? And he makes a ton of clicks off of just being a negative hater who just makes fun of, I don't know, Machine Gun Kelly. I'd like to remind you again of the perverse incentive structure, niche and negativity. Yes, his audience is largely edgy kids. Okay, is largely internet music fans. There's a kind of music that is particularly appreciated by the internet, and he happens to speak to those people. And again, the negativity is what sells, but if you actually look at his content, you actually look at his work, the amount that he is negative is vanishingly small versus positive. Again, he's somebody who's able to share passion. But unlike Beato, I don't think it's as a teacher, I think it's as a student. You see, his origin story isn't the same at all. He started off at a college radio station. You might not have gone to college. Maybe college radio stations aren't quite as hip and happening as they were when I was growing up. I grew up in the Boston area, and I'm telling you, like, man, just what was it, BC? Oh my God, Boston College's radio station. I actually did a show on a Boston College radio station of French rap, and I got terrified because one of the songs featured Old Dirty Bastard, a French song, and he used a swear word. So I let a swear go on. I think it's 90.9. I don't remember the numbers anymore. But college radio stations are super important. And there's a kind of person who works at a college radio station, okay? And that's who he is. a kind of super cool guy who can put you up on things. I remember I used to be friends with a guy named Joe Gargalinski. He changed his name and I can't find him anymore. I haven't talked to him since 2000 when I graduated, but I did hear him on Art Bell Coast to Coast, giving the country a 2 out of 10 for our future prospects. Very strange to hear him. But what he did was he worked at the radio station, but he also make mixtapes. And that's how I got into bands like the Magnetic Fields and Smog. And he was able to do that because he was that kind of cool guy. And Fantano took that kind of cool guy energy, that cool guy access, and turned it into a career, an entire career. He is the entire world's cool guy who works at a college radio station. All right? There's all sorts of cool guys and cool girls and cool NBs that no longer exist. Okay, or exist in vanishing numbers, like cool guy, cool girl, cool NB at the record store. Okay, they still exist, especially out here in Rochester, New York. Props to the Bop Shop, props to the amusingly named Needle Drop Records, props to Record Archive, House of Guitars with its weird, totally chaotic record section. Okay, I'm leaving out some. Okay, what Planet Records out there in Brockport? Hidden Treasures. There's all sorts of record stores out here, but in general, that kind of person is gone. That kind of older brother-like energy is what he brings. And he's a student. And I made an entire video all about him, which I'll include a link to that too. There's no way I'm going to remember that one, so just check in the description. I did it in costume too. I dressed up as Fantano. It didn't really work. I don't have the hair for it. But the thing is that he delivers such high quality, consistent, thoughtful reviews that people just take it for granted. They just take it for granted that there's going to be a voice who is going to cover most major new releases plus a metric ton of lesser known artists, who's going to put people on, who's going to help define the moment, who's going to help describe the moment. People just don't understand how good we have it. He's open, he's thoughtful, he's also, not to mention, generous with his time, with smaller creators, myself included. It's hard for me to, the thing though, is it's hard to pick just one, because the thing about Fantano is his consistency, especially on the Needle Drop, his main channel. You know, okay, the To Pimp a Butterfly is one of his most viewed videos from 8 years ago. Check that one out. But you know what? Check out the last one he did. Just click on his channel. You are going to see this level of thought, care. Sometimes I watch his videos and I get mad, right? Because I used to be a drummer, okay? So that makes me inherently overly competitive. So I am competitive. Not really with Beato, because we don't really have the same audience, but I do feel competitive with Fantano sometimes. And my videos are way longer and way more discussions about philosophy and all that stuff. And sometimes I'll watch one of his videos and I'll be like, son of a bitch. He just said in 10 minutes what I said in an hour. Okay, and he's able to do that because he's a professional. He knows what he's doing, and if you like more of kind of a comedic angle, you should check out his second channel, Fantano. That's where he's a little bit more loose, a little bit more fun. That's the other aspect, is he's a comedic mind. He interviews comedians. Okay, the other time I get jealous is he's interviewed Kyle Mooney and Tim Heidecker, which sucks. I want to interview those guys so bad. I mean, yeah, it's cool that he interviewed, I don't know, MG Lenderman and a whole bunch of, really cool musicians. But I want to interview Tim Heidecker. I have high points, goddammit. I will say one other thing that popped up in the comments is the tricky issue of race. They're both discussing black music, right? Jazz, blues, rock, hip hop, right? I find criticisms of Beato to be particularly short-sighted, because I think his respect is in not trying to pretend that he understands things that he doesn't. I've never heard him put down rap or say that it's part of the oversimplification of music. I've never seen him praise it either. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I feel like he knows what he gets, he knows what he doesn't, and not talking about things you don't get is not actually disrespect. It's just a choice, okay? And Fantano, for his part, is a really strong ally who, despite the fact that he doesn't really promote himself that way, like I do probably. He is just so consistently a strong voice of political activism, of racial justice. Like, he uses his platform, and a lot of his audience can be sort of dweeby, alt-right knob-ends. It can be that way. And he's never afraid to offend them, and he always stands on business, as we say. So there you go. Both these guys are easy to hate because they're so popular, but it's much easier to love them. Let's just take a second, you know, to appreciate them. I'm very curious to meet them in person. I'll be meeting them in like 5 hours. We're going out to dinner. You know, they both have a kind of aloof presence, which I think is necessary when you're that popular. So I'm curious what it is. Do you want to hear some more of the questions I might ask? Let's see. How'd you get started as a voice in new media? What do you think of the cartoonish view of you? I'm not going to ask that. This is my favorite question. At one point, we were all teenagers sitting in our rooms, listening to music in a deep and meaningful way that connected with our soul and formed our personalities. What was that album for you? So I'm not going to go through the rest of the questions, but I want you to answer that question for me because I love this question. Okay? Remember when you were in your bedroom. I don't care if you listen to streaming, you listen to MP3s, you listen to cassettes, you listen to vinyls, you listen to CDs. Okay? I don't care. You want to come up, Toby? So I got my dog right here. What was that album? I realized for me that album was More Noise and Other Disturbances by the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. Hey, however you get there. Haven't listened to that album in 30 years, but I appreciate what it did. So there you go. What do you like about Beato? What do you like about Fantano? Are you fans of both of them? And okay, all right. I have to show you Toby, and then I'm gonna get going. You see? You say hi. Who do you? I think Toby is the Fantano of my two dogs, and Bo is the Beato, because Bo's a little bit older, not a ton older, but a little bit older. Yeah. All right, we'll see. All right, well, thank you very much for watching. I'm really nervous. I hope this comes out. Sorry that I'm not there for the live premiere, but I'm literally, while you are watching this, if you're watching the live premiere, I am literally on stage in front of maybe 1,000 people. And these two giants of the thing that I am trying to do. So I'll tell you what, if you're watching the premiere, or even if you're not, type in the comment section, merde. That means shit in French, and that's how you say good luck, M-E-R-D-E. The trick with French is you're never supposed to respond. You're never supposed to say thanks or very cool, so I won't thank you or do anything, because that's the superstition, okay? All right. Until next time, there's the camera.